So there's a debate going on right now in the Democratic Party as to whether the Democrats are going to be able to woo over some of the white working class to our side in the next election, or whether they're completely lost as a result of their racial antagonism. Well, let's talk about that in today's video. Hi, I'm Mike Greiner. I'm a lifelong Democratic activist who's concerned about the direction our country is taking. If you share my concerns, maybe you could like this video and subscribe to this channel, maybe even click that little bell that will notify you when I post something new. So the Democrats are certainly facing headwinds in the 2022 election. I think that we have a fair shot of being able to take the Senate. The real concern is the House, where we have only a 5-vote majority. Predictions are that with redistricting, we're going to right off the bat lose as many as 12 seats. That fact is made worse by the fact that in the states that Democrats control, we've installed things like nonpartisan redistricting commissions, like in Colorado. And the Republicans in the states they control are being as aggressive as possible in trying to take as many congressional seats as they can. In Texas, Governor Greg Abbott has called another special session of the legislature just to talk about redistricting. That's on top of the fact that the party in power historically loses seats in Congress. As a result, that slim legislative majority is really in danger. Now, there are those who say that by pivoting essentially to a more economic message, that the Democrats will be able to win back a good portion of that working class. While others say that it really doesn't matter what the Democrats do, because of the racial resentment of the white working class, at this point, it's unlikely that they're ever coming back to the Democrats. Unfortunately, the evidence seems to support the second interpretation. As research points out, and again, I'll post a link below to support for everything I argue here, conservative ideology and Republican Party membership at this point is driven almost entirely by racial resentment. The fact that women now outnumber men in college, in some places by as much as 20%, is only compounding that problem, where women tend to lean Democratic anyway, and higher education is equated to higher support for the Democrats. The working class white men who are being left behind are increasingly resentful. And rather than trying to do something about their diminished prospects and support an agenda that would actually try to address these issues, it's easier to just direct their resentment at people of color and immigrants and other people who don't look or act like them. If you think about it, that's why they love Donald Trump so much. He's the ultimate example of white privilege, white male privilege in particular. That's why the pussy grabber comment didn't bother anybody. Donald Trump represents exactly what these frustrated white men desire. To be given all sorts of privileges and all sorts of benefits and all sorts of praise, despite the fact that you're mediocre and basically a loser. I mean, let's face it, if Donald Trump had been born into the family that he was born into, he would not have become president of the United States. And interestingly enough then, people's positions on other issues then follow from their partisan association. So in other words, people become Republicans because of their racial resentments, but then they accept the rest of the Republican agenda because they identify with that, not because they necessarily support the issues. That explains how many of these white working class people can support policies that frankly are bad for them, and that are clearly bad for them, and that they know it. In other words, in America right now, it's racial resentment that is wagging the dog. But does that mean that Democrats need to completely give up on the white working class? Certainly not. There are districts across the country currently held by Democrats who might be endangered in the next election because of the fact that they represent large groups of white working class voters. Certainly the Democrats need to do their best to turn out our big supporters, but by the same token, there are many districts where that's not enough, and many states where that's not enough. Think about Pennsylvania or my home state of Michigan, for example, states that are crucial both to the U.S. Senate and to the presidential election. As we saw in the last presidential election, districts in states like that are won by tiny percentages. It's not like California, where the Democrat will win by double digits. As a result, if we're able to peel away just a couple percentage points of these white working class voters by directly appealing to their own self-interest, talking to them about things like pocketbook issues, the money that's coming into their bank account as a result of the child tax credit, jobs that are being made available as a result of the infrastructure bill, healthcare that's being made available to them, and maybe pushing some other issues, like increased access to marijuana, for example. I'll link to a video of mine on that point up here. The truth is, in many of these districts, if Democrats are able to go there and point to these serious accomplishments and remind the voters of those districts and those states that if Republicans are elected, those things will be taken away. Well, at a certain point, people have to make the decision, what's more important, my racial resentments or my own pocketbook? Well, I hate to say it, but in most cases, the racial resentments will win out. But we don't need to win in most cases. We just need to win a few percentage points, enough percentage points to get us over the 50% mark. So when you're dealing with this kind of game of inches, every little bit will help. And there's plenty in the Build Back Better bill that will be something that will help these Democrats representing more white working class districts to have something to point to that their constituents will care about. That's why it's smart for people like Bernie Sanders and AOC to strongly advocate passing the Build Back Better agenda, even though it doesn't necessarily include everything that we'd hope for. They realize that the only way Democrats are going to make any progress in this country is if we win at the ballot box first. Well, if you agree with me or disagree with me, I'd love to see your comments down below. And if you could leave me a like and maybe subscribe to this channel, that'd be a huge help. I'll see you in the next video. In the meantime, let's hope for continued progress. Thank you.